Okay. All right. Why don't we go ahead and get started? Hold on one second. All right. Nice to see you all. Hope you're having a good summer. Hope you're staying cool. And it was great to be in New York City, and things are opening up there. All the different restaurants that created outside restaurant spaces during COVID. So now those are still open, plus the inside. So it has a very kind of festive market feel with everybody outside. It's a little harder to walk because all these little pop-up places are kind of crowding the streets and the sidewalks, but it also makes it very fun. So it was nice to see things coming back together again. This week we are in Parshat Balak, one of our only two parshas that are named for non-Jews, and in the case of Parshat Balak, named for somebody who is evil. So it seems kind of strange that we would have a I'm just going to hold on one second. I'm just going to mute everybody, and then please unmute if you have when you have a comment or a question. Okay. Seems kind of strange to name a parsha after someone who is evil, King Balak, who hires the prophet, the bad prophet Bilam, to curse the Jewish people. And many people are familiar with the story that Balak hires Bilam to curse the Jewish people, but the only thing that happens is Bilam is only able to bless the Jewish people. And one of those blessings has come down to us as part of our daily davening that we say when we come into the synagogue. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkanotecha Yisrael. Ma tovu ohalecha, how goodly are your tents. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, Jacob mishkanotecha Yisrael, your dwelling places, O Israel, referring to the study halls and to the homes of the Jewish people, primarily of the homes of the modesty that was expressed in the Jewish homes, both in the homes themselves and how they were set up so that people could not see into other people's doorways. And I think that in this day of private issues of concern about privacy and lack thereof, and having a sense of restraint and privacy and intimacy in all aspects of our lives, that this is a statement worth contemplating. As we have, shows, we have Facebook posts, we have things where people just kind of spill everything about what's going on the inside of their lives. And I'm not talking about sharing problems and issues that should be shared in order to have help or to get support, but where there's, as we don't have the phrase TMI, too much information for no reason. That the TMI, too much information, private information about people, about ourselves, about situations, is like, it's not for public consumption. And the Jewish people have been known for their sense of, I don't know, I'm not sure what the right word is. It's like having a sense of respect. I don't know, maybe does somebody have another good word of, it's not exactly restraint, but what's a good word to describe? Modesty. Very good. A sense of modesty. And modesty isn't about how long your skirts are or how long your sleeves are, though that's part of it as well. It's about just the display of body. It's just like that which is the most physical aspect as opposed to the spiritual aspect of the radiant neshama of a human being, which is our primary feature, which gets eclipsed by the exposure of the body. So I have to say that being in New York, and in New York City, kind of everything goes, I think there, just like in many big cities, and it's summer and people are out on the streets and you just see everything of everybody. It's just like, wow. If my great-grandmother would be alive, she would say, those people forgot to get dressed. They're out in their underwear. And it's like, okay. So, well, it's hot. I'm like, Yeah, you're hot that way and you'd be hot the other way too, but at least we wouldn't be seeing every single aspect of you and being distracted by the physicality. So this idea of, as Etta said, of the modesty. And the word is interesting because it's always translated as modesty. Sorry, I came home with a little bit of a croaky throat from my little grandson. Children's terms, is the word private, the idea of something of privacy. And that is interesting because in the Haftorah for this week comes from the prophet Micah. And it asks, in fact, it's our blessing that we say, or that my husband says for our son and his family every Friday night. It has been told thee, O man, what is good and what the Lord doth require of you, only to do justice, to love chesed, kindness, and hatsnea lechet im Hashem Elokecha, and to walk modestly, privately with Hashem, your God. And the idea of a sense of privacy. And it's not privacy coming from shame, but a privacy coming from dignity, of a sense that there are things that are not for public consumption. So this is this week's parsha that has this blessing about the Jewish people. And it is a blessing, but it's also an aspiration of something that we're supposed to ask ourselves. What does it mean to live modestly? So obviously it's the opposite of conspicuous consumption. It's the opposite of bragging. It's the opposite of making ourselves the center of attention. It's the opposite of what so much of our society promotes as a good thing that you should be trying to do. How to make an entrance, how to make a grand entrance into the room so everybody notices you. Even products on TV dealing, I'm very sad for people who have psoriasis. It's like that one of the things is about how to be able to go in to take a medication so that you can wear a skimpy thing. So, and the thing is, see me, like be able to see my body and to see all of me. Yes, I want people's bodies to be healed and they shouldn't be giving them any difficulties or problems or anything like that. But our goal is not really see me. And the truth is, it is to see me, but it's to see what's really me. And the real me is my neshama. So if my body is on such full display, the truth is I can't see you. I can't see somebody's true soul and essence because it's so distracting by everything that they are presenting by their body, which is the physicality. The neshama, our spirit, our soul has such a quiet voice that we have to amplify it. That's a very popular word these days, is how to amplify the voice of our neshama and quiet the voice of our physicality. The physicality, the physical part of us came equipped with a loud voice. Our goal is to try to keep it more toned down and to make the rest of our, to make the voice of our neshama louder. So we do this by the contrast of trying to quiet one down and give more voice to the other. That is the hallmark that's supposed to be of the Jewish people that we are supposed to live up to. So there's many reasons why we're told to live modestly and to walk humbly with God. And somebody could say we don't want to make other people jealous. We don't want other people saying bad things about us. We don't want people saying bad things about the Jewish people. There's a lot of all those reasons, but then there's just the basic reason of what kind of person do I want to be in this world? How do I want to present myself? And how do I want to be more accessible to other people? The truth is, we are more accessible to other people when our neshama is more front and center and our physicality is taking a back seat. Because sometimes we, I don't know, we can give off vibes that we're unapproachable. But somebody who's the warmth of their neshama is able to speak loudly, then that is actually what makes us accessible to other people and creates a possibility for having more and deeper relationships with other people. It's just like when you go out with somebody or you're with somebody and have a heart-to-heart talk and you really feel like you've connected with them. I'm guessing that when you have that feeling, that's a heart-to-heart feeling, that's a neshama feeling, that's a mind meld, it's a soul connection. You wouldn't say, your outfit was just so stunning that I just feel really close to you. Like nobody would say that because it's never about that. It is always about the heart. So if there's too much like loud, too many decibels in the physicality part, we think we're expressing ourselves, we're actually getting in our own way. And we're getting in the way of having a real connection with other people. So this is the week to kind of think about that. This doesn't mean that we go around in drab, schlumpy homes, outfits, or anything like that. It just means that we tone it down and keep it nice and respectable and pleasant and attractive, but something that is just down. It reminds me more of what royalty in England, about how the royal family has to dress. Now, whether they follow the laws or not, but I remember reading, and I don't remember so many of them, maybe some of you who are more royalty focused have seen them, but there's certain things that they can't wear. They can't wear, I think that they can't wear slits, and they can't wear, patterns that are too bold, and they can't wear all these different things that are just considered not dignified. And yet, I think, was it Princess Kate or whatever, Lady Kate, Princess Kate? I think she's just beautiful. She doesn't look frumpy. She looks really lovely. She looks really, really lovely. And I don't know, I think those are, if we would package our product in the realm of how to dress like royalty, maybe we would get someplace. Instead, people think like, oh, you just want me to be frumpy and ugly. It's like, no, we want you to be dignified and look like royalty. That's what we really want, is royalty, the good kind of royalty. Any thoughts or questions just about that and the challenge of our society? If anybody's been shopping recently, what you see in the stores, I don't know if anybody's been successful finding anything to wear. That's how I always end up in the jewelry and the purse department, is because I don't find any clothes. It's really hard. Winter is easier. Summer is really hard. And teenage girls have it really bad. The things that they're selling for them to wear look like a slip, that you wouldn't walk out of your bedroom normally in these things, and that's passing for clothing. So I don't know. We're very counterculture. We are really counterculture. And yet, I heard someone speak about this. The world is hungry for our message, because the truth is people really do want to have a life that is meaningful. They want to be seen. They want to be appreciated. They want to be recognized for who they are. I think everyone's at a loss about how to actually go about doing that. And so people take some very bizarre and extreme paths trying to get there, and they kind of miss it. So Judaism lays out a path of royalty, a path of dignity, a path of beauty, a path of holiness, a path of all the things that really humanity wants. But if we don't understand it, the rest of the world will never have a chance of buying it from us. So we have to first get the message ourselves, and then we can pass it on to others. And God willing, we can do that. So that's our blessing, that Bilam, the terrible prophet, in his attempt to curse us, really ends up blessing us with both an observation as well as an aspiration that we have for ourselves and for really all of humanity. Okay. Any thoughts or questions just on this part here before we continue? Yes, Etta.
I used to live in a small town called Scranton, Pennsylvania, and the people were just amazing. There were just like very holy people, not into, they didn't have houses that were well painted, but it wasn't a wealthy town like Denver, but it was a great town. The people walking around were beaming with happiness. So it was terrific. And one day, this older woman, older than me even, and she said, one day there was this girl walking, a teenage girl walking past her house, and she asked her to come in because she had seen her. It's a small town, everybody knows each other. She knew she was Jewish. So she asked her to please come into her bedroom. She had like a long pier mirror, on a stand. And she said, this is how you're presenting yourself. Is that how you want to be seen? And, her bra straps were showing, and it was a see-through shirt, might have been in the 60s. And the girl said, like, what do you mean? And there was nobody there at home to talk to her. So she just started telling her about how beautiful and holy she was, and that don't you want men to look at your face? Don't you want them to look into your eyes and look for a soul there? Do you really just want to be seen as flesh? So I don't know how it all worked out, but it was a good story.
It's a
And
great story.
well
I
done.
have
Yes,
something to
DJ.
say.
Yes.
Hi. First of all, hi.
Hello.
I can't believe I'm up finally. Tuesday seems to be the most difficult time for me to stay awake, but I'm babysitting tonight, so it's okay. In terms of modesty, I think that, well, I feel that modesty first comes from the soul within. And it's not, I think, so much what one wears, but how one projects themselves to others. For instance, I have a daughter who is Breslov. She totally covered in black, and her daughters, and they call them the shawl people or the Jewish
Wow.
Taliban. Their message is modesty extreme,
Yes.
quite extreme.
Yes.
Whereas I have another range of daughters who wear any kind of gorgeous clothes to stylish clothes to sleeveless to whatever. But after speaking with any one of them for a minute, you can see the goodness and the modesty from within their souls. That it's not, like the woman speaking before you about however this woman presented herself and what many would perceive as not tznius, unmodest clothing. But it's not a matter of getting someone or a man to look at your face or something else. If you say something nice, if you smile, if you offer a helping hand, these are the things that go beyond what you wear, what one
Yeah.
wears.
Yes.
It's who you are, how you present yourself, how you
I
see.
agree. I agree. Thank you. Thank you very much. So you raise a really good point, and I'll say you're both right. There is like the essence. First of all, it does start within. I mean, schools try this. They try a dress code and whatever. You have to dress like this. This will make you modest, whatever. Yes and no. Yes and no. It has to come from within. That what a person is and who they are in their essence. That is true. Studies have also found, however, that the way we dress does impact the way we think about ourselves. It even impacts how well we do in school. They've done things that have nothing to do with Jewish school, and they've done tests on girls who are wearing tight-fitting clothes and doing tests, and they do better when they are dressed differently. That's why a lot of the schools have uniforms and things like that. So there is very much an interplay, which we recognize. We have that the Kohen Gadol has beautiful clothing, holy clothing. He can't minister without that clothing on. The clothing itself is part of the ministry. That is it. We are made. That was one of the first thing that Hashem did for Adam and Chava after the sin of eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. They already had an outfit. They had made themselves, fig leaves. They were covered. It says Hashem made them clothing. Having clothing that speaks the same message, because what we ideally want is for the message to be congruent. So yes, of course it's true. You can have somebody who's dressed one way and very modest, and they're an immodest person. You can have somebody who's a very modest person internally, but they're dressed however. our goal is to try to get that picture congruent, because when as soon as we walk out of our house, other people are seeing us, and we are responsible. We have a concept in halacha called ma'arit ayin, of how something appears to other people. And so we are responsible for an image that we are projecting. And just, that's why people pay a lot of money for marketing and advertising. That if you notice that there's a very big focus on what the product is and how it is packaged. And so if you want people to understand what your product is, you want a package that matches your product. And as someone said, you don't want Fruit Loop. If you're Fruit Loops, okay, so then maybe you want a Fruit Loop box. But if you're not Fruit Loops, why are you in a Fruit Loop box? So that if you are really something precious, then it should be displayed in that way. Now, what is true is that different communities have different standards of what's considered whatever, and that's a whole other conversation, which takes us off track a little bit. But it is that the idea of clothing in and of itself gives us dignity in and of itself, which is why people wear clothing, and the clothing is that it gives us, it makes a statement about who we are and what we do. So why we have uniforms for different tasks. It's like when you are dressed a certain way, people perform differently, they're seen differently. It's like even on commercials, when it's not a doctor, he's dressed in a white lab coat. And then at the bottom in very tiny writing, it says, this person is not a doctor, he's an actor portraying one. But in our minds, we believe this person wearing a white jacket because white jacket says doctor, reliable source. We are wired to respond to that. So we're supposed to take advantage of that and do ourselves a favor and say, at least to convey this, who I am on the inside, I am projecting outward. And what I'm projecting outward can also help me internalize what I am as well. So lots to be said about this. And as I said, both of these ideas are correct. Let's move on and talk about some other aspect, which is about the prophet Bilam. How many of you are familiar with Bilam's donkey, that he rides specifically a she donkey? Okay, she rides a she donkey. Now, the word for the donkey here is an aton. Aton is a she donkey. Another word for donkey is a chamor. Okay, a chamor is also a donkey. But the question is that this donkey is the path that Bilam is using to ride off to his quest to go to the king Balak to go and curse the Jewish people. The donkey sees an angel of God who is trying to stop Bilam from going. Bilam does not see the angel, but the donkey sees the angel. So the donkey won't move, and Bilam hits the donkey 3 times, and it basically pins his leg against the wall, which is very interesting that the Torah goes to great lengths to describe for us that the donkey pins Bilam's leg against the wall. Because do I really need to know that? Like how he was stopped? Just say, that Bilam couldn't move because the donkey wouldn't move. But it says specifically he was pinned. And it said he pinned his regel, he pinned his leg, regel Bilam. But it doesn't say regel shel Bilam, the leg of Bilam. It just says regel Bilam. So I'd like to take that and kind of open that conversation up in a different way, which is that the word regel, which means leg, also is related to the word ragil. Ragil means regular, or like something that you do regularly. A habit is something you do by ragil, something that you do on a regular basis. The path you usually walk, what we call how we do something by rote. What does it mean when we do something by rote? It's just like we automatically do it. My legs just took me there. Bilam was, even though God told him, he had the tremendous privilege of being an evil person, but having God speak directly to him. That's pretty amazing. God says, don't go. And Bilam somehow doesn't get this in his head. He's going anyway. So God tells him no, and Bilam is like, I'm going anyway. So he gets on the donkey sees the angel of God, and he stops, and Bilam starts hitting the donkey, trying to get him to go to his left, to the right, etc. He won't go. This idea, as far as for us, is like, why do we need to know this? says, how often are we like Bilam? That we're just, I will say, just like we're headstrong, we are bent on doing something that we know is not the right thing. And we just keep trying to go this way, or the other way. Our habit, whatever it is that we do, beragil, that we just do it on a regular basis, habitually, we just keep doing it, even though we know we're not supposed to. So how does that happen? What's in us that makes us do that? You would think, you listen, you read the story about Bilam, is like, what is his problem? How does he not see that God is talking to him, telling him not to do it? The donkey won't go. And instead of getting the message, says like, no one got he didn't get the memo, he didn't get the message. Why does he continue trying to do that? He just keeps on going, barking, what we would call barking up the wrong tree. So it can either be that we're trying to do the wrong thing and we just keep going with it, or that we are trying to do something and it's not working, and we just keep pressing, rather than saying, maybe I'm doing the wrong thing. Maybe I need to reconsider the whole thing. Yes, I see, DJ, your hand is up. Did you have a question? Or is that from before?
Yeah, no, maybe it's a defense mechanism that one has, that when you're on a certain path, it's kind of hard to stop and change your plans.
Yes,
And
for sure. You're right. Absolutely right. It's hard to change your plans because we get very focused on what we're doing, and we're used to doing it.
Yeah, so it's kind of a defense thing with Balaam. I'm going to keep going because that's my goal.
Right.
So
and that's what I do, because he is an evil person. So an evil person who is bent on doing a certain thing, even though God himself has told him not to do it, the donkey is clearly not participating in it, and his only response is to keep hitting the donkey until the donkey pins his leg. So it's like he pins his regil, he pins his habit and forces him. And the word that is used, it says, and he forces it. He forces his leg against the wall. So we say this too, that we say we do something, it says, until my back was against the wall. My back was against the wall. And sometimes we do not consider changing our approach until our back is against the wall. Or, in other words, until the donkey has pinned my habit, pinned my regular way of doing it against the wall. I cannot go any further. And then it hurts to have your leg pinned against the wall. And it hurts to have our back against the wall. So there's almost as if we have to be in a certain amount of pain before we get a message that says, stop, think about what you're doing. Is what you're doing working? Is number one, is it the right thing? It may not even be the right thing. And number two, it may be the right thing in the wrong way. That what it says, that the definition of insanity is to keep doing something the same way over and over and expecting different results. It's like, but we have our way of doing it. It's like we have our way. So our way that's ragil for us, that's regular, that's ordinary, we may need to think outside of the box. And that's what thinking outside of the box means. It means I always do this, I always do that. We have not that I even want to think that we are like this, we have a wasp trap that we use. I'm sorry if anybody has warm feelings about wasps, but we don't at Sukkot's time. So we have a wasp trap. It includes no poison, no anything for it. It has bait on the inside. It has a smell that they like, and they can get in, but they can't get out. And none of them ever figures out how to get out. It's not like they look in there and see all the trapped wasps and think, I wonder why they're all in there. How am I going to get out of there? No one ever thinks. And it's just fascinating in a kind of weird way to watch each of them go in, circle in, get trapped, and not be able to get out. Like, am I doing that? Like, am I doing that in something where I just keep going the exact same route and getting trapped in the exact same, it could be a habit, it could be a way of dealing with challenges. Maybe I'm someone who thinks like my way of dealing with things is always to, blow up and get upset and tell people how I really feel. Or my way of dealing with things is always to withdraw and not say anything because I don't want to make waves and I don't want to cause problems. Whatever it is, those ways we have to check, are they working? Or am I like that wasp getting myself caught in a trap every single time? Whatever it is that I'm doing regularly is not working. And to ask myself that question, because I don't want to be like the wasp. I don't want to be like Bilam, and I don't want to have my back against the wall. I don't want to have my leg pressed against, my regel pressed against the wall and not be able to do anything about it. This is our challenge for this parsha, is to look at things from a different perspective. And when we do, to see if there are other options and other ways of doing things. One of the best ways to do this is to ask for a friend's insight, a friend or a professional person to say, you know, I've been dealing with this situation, and every time I do this, you know, it never works. I always keep running up against the same thing over and over again. Can you give me a different perspective? I'll share that when we complain to our friends about things in our lives, we rarely really ask them for advice or their perspective. And the more someone loves us, the less likely they may be to actually tell us what could be very helpful to us. They may commiserate with us. I'm so sorry, that's so hard. And if we could get into their minds for 1 minute, we would see that they probably have some answers for us, because they see our situation from a different perspective. And they could say, well, you know what? I think if you would consider it from this perspective, this might work out better for you. So people will pay a therapist, or they'll pay a coach, or they'll pay somebody to give them that kind of answer and that kind of idea. But sometimes a very good friend can do the same thing and can really help out. So we don't want to be like Bilam. We don't want to be, you know, have our habit hit us against the wall until we, what they say, scream uncle, and have to consider doing something differently. So we learn from Bilam what not to do and how not to be. As we are considering this, we want to go to another piece of this week's kind of spiritual puzzle, which is that this Sunday is the 17th of Tammuz. The 17th of Tammuz commemorates the dates for both the first and the second temples when the walls of Jerusalem were breached. When they were breached, which led to 3 weeks later, both times, on Tisha B'Av, the 9th of Av, to the destruction of the temple. But before the temple was destroyed, we had the breach in the walls. And so Sunday is a fast day, and that initiates what are called the 3 weeks, times of semi-mourning, which will intensify on Rosh Chodesh Av, the 1st of Av, to what are called the 9 days, where we will not have any wine or meat, and we don't do laundry, and we are really like, we are beginning to sit Shiva until we reach the 9th of Av, which is the bottom of our calendar, the bottom time of the cycle of time. But I want to share this, and I'm so sorry I did not write down the name of the rabbi who shared this. I thought I was going to remember it, but I didn't, who talked about a way to see the breach in the wall as something positive. Then we think, okay, how is this positive, the breaching the walls of Jerusalem? But the breach didn't happen in one day. So there's a discussion in the Gemara. And one comment says that actually the breach in the wall was on the 9th of Tammuz. And then it says it was on the 17th. So the question is, was it on the 9th or was it the 17th? So we're used to hearing that in the Talmud, there are always debates. There are always machlokas. There's always debates. So something that's very important for us to know is there are debates on perspective, but there are not debates on facts. If something was a historical fact, there is not a debate. You cannot have a debate. There's not a machlokas on what's called a metzia, of what something actually happened. There can only be a debate about the perspective. So the epitome of that is the debate between Hillel and Shammai about the candles on Hanukkah, about the lights on Hanukkah. Do we add to the light, or do we go 1 to 8, or do we do 8 to 1? One is from the perspective of the miracle increased each day, therefore we should go up. And then the other is we should go down because the oil started with more oil and progressively got less. So there is no debate that Hanukkah happened. There's no debate that there was the oil. The only debate is which aspect of it are you going to focus on? So those are the debates that you can go across the board in every debate in Talmud. There are no debates on facts. There are only debates on perspective. So the fact that this has a difference in date, was the breach on the 9th or was the breach on the 17th? So it's resolved in such a fascinating way. When the breach first started, the breach didn't happen in one day. How do you breach the walls? It's like, it started small. Just like if you have a hole, it's like the day the dam broke, okay, when the wall of the dam was breached and you had the flood, when did that actually start? So we've all seen the cartoons even. When does it start? Or what starts it? There's a little chink, right? A little thing comes out, and then, the boy in the town or the girl, whoever the hero is, comes and puts their finger in the hole trying to stop it up, right? And then the pressure builds and there's more and more and more until it bursts. So if you were recording when did the breach happen, you could date it from one date or the other. You could start it from the day the first chink came out, or you could do it from when the walls were breached completely. So the question is, why do we care? In the end, the temple was destroyed. So what difference does it make? So here's something that I think is so important and powerful for us to know and to really think about and take to heart. When the wall was first breached, there was time for the Jewish people to still do teshuvah. There was time for them to say, we better fix our ways, mend our ways, do teshuvah, and change this so that we can defeat the Babylonians and then the Romans. They didn't. Instead, they were like, oh no, it's all over, we're lost. So this was a fatal miscalculation. It was a fatal miscalculation because their mind went from small breach to it's all over. Says that wasn't the scenario. If they would have done teshuvah when it was a small breach, the scenario that could have unfolded is that the Babylonians could have decided that they were going to enter the city single file, that they would just go through the narrow breach single file. Had they done that, the Jewish people would have been successful, kind of picking them off one by one, and they would have won. But because they came to the conclusion in their mind, it's all over, there's nothing that we can do. So then the breach widened and widened until they were then completely overwhelmed. If they would have acted on the 9th and not let it go to the 17th, they could have been a different outcome. So one Gemara records when it started and said that then they miscalculated what the result was going to be. So what does this mean? This means for us that we have breaches in all sorts of areas of our life. We have breaches in relationships. We have breaches in relationships with family, with ourselves, with Hashem, with our community. All sorts of things have like the beginnings of something, or maybe it's even gotten a little bit more than just a beginning. Anytime we decide, well, it's all over, that relation, there's no way, there's nothing to fix, it's all over, can't do anything about it, that in and of itself is the defeat. That is the defeat that we create ourselves. The fact that there's a breach, in a way, also creates, because a breach can also be described as an opening. What's the difference between a breach that's leading to destruction and a breach that is an opening? If we were to look at all the places where there are breaches in our relationships and in things that we are supposed to be doing, needing to do, whatever realm of our life it is, to see it as an opening for a possibility. That when there's a crack in the system, you could say, oh my God, there's a crack, the whole thing is falling apart. Or we can say, oh, there's a crack, there's a way to create a new opportunity, because cracks in walls let in light. So when there is a wall and there's a crack in it, it could mean, on one hand, it could mean destruction if we just let it go on a natural path, or it means there is an opening and a possibility for something else to happen. As long as we keep our eyes focused on what is the possibility that is now being created for us, we have the ability to change the outcome and to change the trajectory and to change the entire story. DJ.
Yeah, question, when you're talking about from the 9th of Tammuz to the Shvasle to the 17th of Tammuz,
Yes.
and that's depending on how you're counting it, if you're including the first and last days, that's 9 days. Is that significant of the 9 days of the last of the 3 weeks?
That's a very good question. He did not mention that, so I don't know. I do not
Okay.
know. So that's a really good question. What it is, I mean, it's interesting. I have to say, from like a normal, I'll call it a normal spiritual perspective, I would have expected it to be 7 days, like a complete cycle. Had they done it like from the 10th to the 17th, that would have been, or something that would be 7. It's like, I give you a week to see this from a different perspective and realize I've actually created an opening for you to do something different. And I've made it really clear to you because I've breached the wall. I've created the light. More information is coming in. All the things that we associate with the opening being good also happens when it's on the path to destruction, also means that it's something good can happen. It's the same thing, when I love to watch design shows. So since the trend these days is making everything all big one open space, so you go in, a couple or a family buys a home, and it's all divided up in the rooms. They're like, we'll take out this wall, we'll take out this wall, it'll let in the light, and all these walls come down. Walls coming down is not necessarily a bad thing. It depends how we interpret it and what we see as the possibility and the potentials. Like, there is always potential, and we get caught up in the destructive aspect of it. Instead, we should be thinking of it as the remodeling aspect of it. Because if you didn't know that this was a design show, you could say, let's say I said, this is a show about people who come in and destroy other people's homes. And I open it up and I see people with their hammers and their sledgehammers and all this stuff. It's like, oh my gosh, look at these people destroying these people's homes. Like, well, actually, they're remodeling it. So that's the way for us to see it, is we're supposed to say the breach in the wall is an opportunity to remodel. The breach is opening up light. It's letting in new possibility. We can see things differently. So there was a story he told about how to just change things around and recognize that everything that seems like a disaster is an opportunity to do something that's in the right path. Told a story about, of course, in Europe, a Jewish man is imprisoned by, I don't know, in this case, like the Tsar, the Russians, whoever it was. And his wife is at their little home and she's starving, and she writes a letter to her husband in prison and says, I don't know what to do. I want to plant the potatoes in our yard. It's the only thing we can do to eat, but the ground is so hard and it's so frozen and I can't do it. And if you were here, we'd be able to do it. And I don't know what to do. So she sends this, and the husband gets the message in prison, and he sends back a letter. Very smart, realizing that any letter that he's sending is going to be read by the authorities. So he says to his wife, he writes in the letter, don't touch the yard and plant any potatoes. That's where I buried all of the guns. Within 2 days, the woman sees like all of these government people coming with pickaxes and shovels, and they're digging up her yard looking for the guns. And of course, they don't find any because there weren't any guns. There wasn't anything there. And she writes her husband again. She goes, I don't know what to do. It was so frightening. These soldiers came, they're digging in our yard. They dug up the whole thing. I don't know what to do. It was so scary. And her husband writes back and says, plant the potatoes. So it's like, oh, okay. So this scary thing happens. They come and they dig them all up. It's like, okay, now plant the potatoes. The destruction has in it the seeds of redemption. So we are not looking forward to having the 17th of Tammuz as a fast day and as a day commemorating the breach in the walls as something destructive. But how will we use the day and transform it is a way to see how we can see the walls separating, opening up, and giving us more perspective, more light, and a different way of doing things, and giving us a chance to remodel. In the future, the 17th of Tammuz and Tisha B'Av will be holidays. They will be considered Yom Tovim. The summer is the time when all the Jewish, like everything in Jewish history, is supposed to come to fruition. The word for summer in Hebrew is kaitz. The word kaitz is related to the word kates. The word kates means end. The end means like everything is finished. It's everything reaches its ultimate fulfillment. If we remember the original Tisha B'Av, the 9th of Av, the original one was when the spies came back from the land of Israel. They should have come back with an amazing report and filled the Jewish people's heart with joy, excitement, and enthusiasm about going into the land of Israel. This was to be a yontif. The 17th of Tammuz was also when Moshe came down from Mount Sinai with this first set of tablets. That was to be a holiday. The fact that it turned into the spies' negative report and the fact that Moses coming down from Mount Sinai coincided with the golden calf, those were mistakes that got the original plan off track. But these days are designated in the future to be Yom Tovim. They are to be holidays. So you thought you were getting ready for the holidays starting in Rosh Hashanah? Well, really, in the future, you're going to be spending July and August getting ready for the holidays, and then going into the holidays of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur and Sukkot. In the future, this coming Sunday is going to be a yontif. How are we going to get it there? We can only get it there if we do the 17th of Tammuz differently, if we do this week differently, because this is the week. The 9th of Tammuz was, let's see, the 9th of Tammuz was this past Shabbos. So, okay, so we're on the 12th of Tammuz. We have 5 days left. This is the time where, yes, the break started, but it doesn't have to turn out the way it did. It can go in a different direction. How are we going to do that? So, a couple of ways. I suggest also that we look at the idea of walls differently as well. Is that there are some walls that are meant to be there, and there's some walls that are meant not to be there. And we need to differentiate what those walls are. We talked before about the Jewish homes, that there were walls of privacy. And walls of privacy, as they say, good walls, good fences make good neighbors, strong fences make good neighbors, good fences make good neighbors, whatever the phrase exactly is the walls of privacy are walls that are supposed to be there. But the walls that are there that keep us separate from other people to engage with them and to interact with them and have relationships with them, those walls are meant to be taken down. And those are the walls that need to be breached. So there are some breaches that need to be repaired, and there's some breaches that need to be taken down. So either we need to put some more walls in, and some places we need to take the walls down. So in our relationship, it's been so hard. People seeing each other now after the pandemic, people kind of stand there looking at each other. It's like, I don't know quite what to do. First of all, we don't know. Are you hugging? Are you kissing? Are you touching? Are you still wearing a mask? Like, what's everybody doing? We don't even know what people are doing. There's a whole other social mores going on that we don't even know what we're supposed to do. So we need to kind of get back I don't know, we need to go back to finishing school where we relearn our manners. I don't even know what we're supposed to do. But just to be with other people and realize that we have been in our homes, we have been behind walls. And even though we've had the privilege of Zoom, which has been great, that we have been isolated in a very strange way. And to be able to navigate those those separations and to reconnect with people in real and important and meaningful ways. So we have walls that need to come down, and we have walls that need to be built up. And our focus of these next 5 days are on how, if we can get the walls right, the walls in our own lives, and then we will be able to handle the 17th of Tammuz will turn into a true Yontif. So it starts with each of us, because the other aspect of a wall being breached is that it happened kind of like brick by brick. And each brick made the next brick easier. It's like once the first brick is out, it makes it easier for the next one. But we have the ability to create a trend going in the opposite direction. So our goal is to see the breach for what it is and to change the trend and the trajectory of what the Jewish people's history is going to be. We are still in this. We are in the aftermath of the destruction of both temples. It's why we live where we do, except for DJ, who's back in the land of Israel and is not in exile anymore, is that we are in exile. And so how do we fix this? And how do we create a world for the Jewish people that has the structure, that has the foundation, that has the holiness that God is looking for us. So we have our lesson from Bilam that we need to make sure that we're not riding our donkey of regularity, the regular way, beating our heads against the wall, having to have our backs against the wall, pushed against the wall, trying to stop us from doing things that just don't work. And asking ourselves in our lives, what's not working? And if it's not working, how we can change the direction, change the scenario, change our approach, whatever it is that we need to do differently. All of us are of an age, just looking around, all of us are of an age where we do what we do. We are who we are. And we've grown accustomed to our regularity of how we do things. And this is the time to ask ourselves, am I really doing things in the way that's the best possible way for my own spiritual growth, for my personal growth, for my relationships with other people, my family, my relationship with Hashem? All of it needs to be questioned. So we want to take just supreme opportunity and supreme advantage of these 5 days between now and the 17th of Tammuz and see if we can change things around. You know, on Tisha B'Av, the 9th of Av, we read what are called kinos, which are dirges, really laments from Jewish history, going back to the Crusades and all of the Holocaust, horrible, horrible things that have happened to the Jewish people. And that's the day we read them, is on Tisha B'Av. But there is a custom to not buy hard copies of those, or not even to buy any of them. So there was the story about a camp in the Catskills. And after one Tisha B'Av, they hadn't had enough sets of the dirges. And so the head of the camp went to the Jewish bookstore in town to order for next year, for the coming year. He wanted to have more on hand. So he went in and he said, I want to order, like another 100 sets of dirges for Tisha B'Av for next year. And the bookseller was like, what? He said, I want to order for next year. He said, I know we didn't have it for this year, but we want to have it for next year. He said, are you crazy? He goes, I won't sell them to you. He said, you want to prepare to observe Tisha B'Av as a sad day next year? And I'm like, chas v'shalom, God forbid we should be having Tisha B'Av again next year as a sad day. I won't sell them to you. I mean, this would have been a big sale. He's like, I won't sell them to you. It's like, that should be our approach. It's like, we're not planning to have the 17th of Tammuz. When we get together next Tuesday, we want to hear that the 17th of Tammuz turned into a holiday. And if it doesn't quite make it into a holiday this year, it should at least be well on its way to becoming a holiday. And the way it becomes on its way to a holiday is I'm looking at our screen here. And I don't know how many of you are looking at this as as the Brady Bunch kind of look here. That's how I look at it, so I can see all of you. We're each part of the wall. We are the wall of protection around Yerushalayim. We are the wall of protection that is surrounds the Jewish people. Each of us literally, and I gave a talk about this ages ago at BMH, say we think of the stones of the walls of Jerusalem, and I don't mean the Kotel walls, I mean the outside walls. We think of those as being stone. It says they're not stone. They're each of us. We are the stones. We are the pieces that are holding it together. It says that's why the temple was destroyed. It's like we had already self-destructed. That's why it came crumbling down. The Babylonians were just an agent for it. We understand it had already come down internally, kind of like rotted from within until it didn't stand. But here we are. So if you just take a look at yourselves or look at your name and picture all the Jewish people you know, you're used to seeing like a plaque, things dedicated. Just picture the rebuilt temple with a plaque, not just of the big donors, of the people, of the names of the people you see and the people you know, of contributing your brick, your face, your life in a way that brings honor and joy to Hashem and to the Jewish people. And it is my brick that I'm responsible for. And to the extent that I can help other people with their bricks, amazing. But I'm mostly responsible for my own. It's easy to say how somebody else isn't doing their brick right, but mostly I'm responsible for mine. If I can put mine in place, that's the way it gets built up. And we do that through taking an approach to other people that takes down the walls of separation and instead builds walls of strength, camaraderie, unity, unification, compassion, love between Jewish people. And that's what will build that wall. So we start from within ourselves, coming from a place of modesty, privacy, royalty, and dignity, and extend that from ourselves. And as DJ was saying, that this is expressed outward. It starts with us. Our wall is only as strong as the weakest link there. So we start with ourselves and what we can bring to it. And as we bring to it, we are going to build the strength of the Jewish people, and we will change the 17th of Tammuz into the holiday that it is meant to be. DJ.
First of all, thank you, Ellyn, and everyone else for participating. When you first started talking about the donkey of Bilam, this could be embarrassing, but I always kind of thought of the donkey as kind of representative of women in a way. We're stubborn. We know when something shouldn't go ahead. We have an inner, I don't know, intuition. We see something that maybe others don't quite see. Call it what you will. And I always like that story because I think that donkey is kind of representative of womanhood, our stubbornness to really see beyond and stand by what we believe, or what we think, what we feel is the right direction.
I like that observation. That's really interesting. I haven't seen that, but that's a very interesting observation. And the other thing that kind of strengthens that is that it makes a very big point of saying that it was a she donkey. It
there
repeatedly says it's a she donkey, it's a she donkey, it's a she donkey. So, and the donkey saw the angel of Hashem. So there are, of course, 70 faces to the Torah and 70 ways to understand things, but I like that. So it's like, so we may be seeing, so check and see if Hashem's message is coming to you, and to be stubborn and not to go against what Hashem wants. It's like that donkey was able to do that better than Bilam. So it certainly does take perseverance, and it takes stubbornness to proceed and to fulfill what it is that we're supposed to do in this world. So God willing, we should all have a little bit of stubbornness in us. We have to make sure that we use the right amount of it in the right way. But thank you for that observation. All right, ladies, thank you so much. And hopefully you'll have a meaningful experience on the 17th of Tammuz. I hope it will be a holiday. It is a fast that starts sun up until Havdalah time, unlike the fast of Tisha B'Av, which is a full day fast that starts the night before. And these fasts they're hard in the summer, not only because of the heat, but because the rest of the world is not on any kind of, I shouldn't say this. I shouldn't say they're not on any kind of, summertime is easygoing time. And summertime doesn't tend to be a time when we think about how can I improve my life? How can I improve spiritually? People tend to take off. Like I'm on vacation from the synagogue, I'm on vacation from Judaism, I'm on vacation from spirituality. I just need to relax. I remember somebody saying to me one time saying, I'm willing to give God a lot, but I need to keep some for me. I'm like, I'm not even sure what that statement means, but I understand what you're saying. So that tends to be, so here we have these very intense times going on in the height of the summer when everybody is kind of more on the let it go place. And instead we're saying, that's interesting and enjoy yourself and have a great vacation. I'm planning, that's why I'm not going to be here for the month of July because I'll be on vacation with my family. At the same time, we have this opportunity to bring a real case, a real end, the right end to our kites of our summer and bring Jewish history to its appropriate, joyful conclusion and not have another schlepped out year of things being so challenging. So I know that I'm happy to have all of you with me partnering in this and doing our part and our share to make the Jewish world and the entire world a stronger, better, and more productive place. So I want to wish you a good week, and I will look forward to seeing you next Tuesday, and then we will be off for the month of July while I'm out having a good time and doing these other work as well. So thank you very much. If anybody has any further questions, you're welcome to stay on.
Thanks, Ellen.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ellen.
Bye,
See you.
Lisa. Bye, Marcia.
Bye.
Bye, Jennifer.
Take
Hello,
care, Ellen.
Tamara. Bye, Tamara. Bye, Trudy.
Read my chat notes, please.
I will for sure.
That is was quite informative for me. I learned a lot from that Philharmonic. It was just a small part of what that virtual thing was the Philharmonic music, but it was beautiful. But this place that they're building, it's unbelievable. For people with disabilities, yes, amazing what Jews do. Anyway,
Beautiful.
everyone
Thank you so
be
much,
well.
Marcia.
Where are you going to be, in Israel or New York?
No, I'm going to be in Colorado, but we're going to go with our kids, God willing, to Bryce and the Grand Canyon and Moab. So we have a trip there. So the kids will be here basically all of July. And
Cool.
then our daughter-in-law's brother is getting married in Cleveland at the end of July, and we're going to that wedding as well.
How wonderful. Okay.
So
All right. Be well, everyone. Let me know what you think of that. Whatever you want to call it, I sent you. All right. Take care.
Thank you
Bye.
very much,
Everybody
Marcia.
be well. Shalom.
Be well. Bye-bye.